So I am here to introduce our moderator. Jeffrey Webster is the former Director of Diversity and Inclusion for Nissan North America, US, Canada, and Mexico. So he joined Nissan in 1985 as a production technician and worked his way up through the company until eventually becoming the Director of Human Resources. So he really just made his way through the company in a great way. Before joining Nissan, Webster worked for the National Baptist Publishing Board, and he earned a Bachelor of Business Administration degree from Middle Tennessee State University. Whoop, whoop. And a 2-year degree from Columbia State Community College. He is a national board member of the Nissan Foundation and also currently serves on the board of the Urban League of Middle Tennessee, YWCA Nashville, Jobs for Mississippi Graduates, and the Mississippi Center for Justice. He's a member of the Society of Human Resources Management, and twice he received the Black Achiever of the Year Award in honor of his accomplishments as a minority professional, which I think is incredible. He's also been named one of the 70 most influential men in African Americans on Wheels magazine, and he received the Emerging Leader Award at the 17th Annual Global Automotive Summit from Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., founder of the Rainbow Push Coalition and the Citizenship Education Fund. He's a busy man. Under his leadership, Nissan has received numerous awards for their diversity efforts, and some are as follows. Diversity Inc. Top 25 Noteworthy Companies for Diversity and Inclusion. Murfreesboro Branch of the NAACP Organization of the Year. Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce Excellence in Business Corporate Diversity Award. Human Rights Campaign CEI Index Perfect Score. In 2019, Webster retired from Nissan. I aspire to retirement. And he promptly opened his own company. So he opened JW3 Consulting Group, LLC. Under his consulting firm and with over 30 years of HR experience, Mr. Webster provides training, professional advice, guidance, and actionable solutions to businesses experiencing issues they can't deal with in-house. So if you need him, he'll be available afterwards, okay? Some of his clients include, but are not limited to, Nissan, Urban League of Middle Tennessee, YWCA of Nashville, Vanderbilt Convalescent Trial Group, Rutherford County Chamber, and Rutherford County Cable. So I am pleased to introduce to you Jeffrey Webster.
Thank you. Anybody happy to be here? Yes. I don't think so. Anybody happy to be here? Yes. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Let me first of all say to Rutherford Cable, thank you for the invitation, for getting this phenomenal panel here today. Also to Bobby Johnson. Give Bobby a Bobby doesn't take no for an answer. So if she calls you, just say yes. It doesn't matter what she's going to ask. But we're just glad to be here and glad to have this phenomenal panel of ladies here. First of all, ladies, let's start off with this. Who has inspired you to be a leader and why? Why have you taken on the role of being a leader?
I'd be glad to start off. For me, it's actually this woman sitting right here in the front row. That's my mother, Carolyn Ross. And I think she speaks to how important it is to be an example for people coming behind us. Her leadership shadow is humongous. She always cared about community. Like, even when I was a small child, she's been an entrepreneur ever since I've known her, obviously, because she's my mom. But she had a business, but her focus wasn't just to make money. It was to bring community together. And so watching her lead, and we're from Detroit, Michigan, in the inner city where, people were flooding and fleeing to suburbs. She actually put her business in the inner city because she wanted to make a difference and employed, the children in the neighborhood and wanted to just be a good example for people who weren't seeing it at the time. So for me, it's my mother who made me want to be a good leader. Thank you, Mom.
Awesome.
I'll go next. So I have to agree, mothers are so important, and mine definitely inspired me. But I think also gave me the foundation to connect with peers. And I am so blessed to have a community of people who have supported me and inspired me, like Dr. Bonner, who's in the audience, Stephanie Cush, Josh Jeffries, many others who have been there to support me and inspire me along my journey in my career.
For me, I believe it's a director within my organization. I watched her rise through the ranks. She was the first African-American director in our IT department at Deloitte. And to watch her go through being the only female one at the table and then the only person of color at the table, she always managed the bigger projects, all the bigger initiatives. She made an intentional effort to make sure that myself and others were brought up through the ranks with her, so we will all have a seat at the table.
Growing up, I heard many people say, your dad is my favorite leader. And I always asked why? And people said, your dad is fair and he cares about me. That inspired me. My mom, she said, do your best. God's given you a talent, find it and use it. And so when I found a talent in leadership in my career, I feel strongly that it's my responsibility to use it, but not for myself, but to help other leaders and help other, now, children aspire to want to find their talents and use them.
Good. Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl, this is Cheryl's second career. Cheryl, after 26 years with Gaylord Opryland, Cheryl has done a phenomenal job. She was not only she was the only employee at Opryland that went from entry-level to the executive committee at their resort, and that speaks volumes. Currently the CEO at the Boys and Girls Club of Rutherford County. And my question to you, Cheryl, is what are the benefits of having women in leadership?
I heard from leaders that I worked with that women were better listeners. When we were making decisions that impacted thousands of employees, I was in touch with the employee, partly because I was a woman, and a lot because I came up through the ranks. It's important to recognize when you're making big decisions how that's going to make people feel. And women bring empathy to the table. I think that we talk a lot about balance. Women need exceptions when there are exceptional times in their lives. And we can be creative in finding solutions that keep women confident about their place. They don't lose hope if maybe, we love our children so much. We need to let women be moms and get the job done, and that can take creativity sometime. And I help my co-leaders at the table, I think, learn to make exceptions that helped us be stronger, helped us make better decisions.
Okay. Anyone else?
That's a superb answer.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Being a female or a woman leader does not come without some type of obstacle. What are some of the most significant barriers to being in leadership as a woman?
I think it is people's expectation that a woman cannot or does not have the power to do as good of a job as a man. And from a business standpoint, you know, I often wonder, I have a habit of trying to assume a positive intent, so I'm not going to assume people mean one thing or another. I just get curious. I have to. But, like, for instance, owning a business, if I'm meeting with a prospective vendor, and they know that my husband and I own the business together, they'll say, talk to your husband and get back to me. And I go, I am very capable of making a decision. My husband respects my decision, and he would support whatever I decide. I can do this by myself. So then I wonder, do you do that to male business owners? Do you say, go talk to your wife and get back to me? I wonder that. I just get curious. So I don't know.
I have to agree. I am in banking and have been in banking for almost 20 years now, and I think the biggest barrier is it's a male-dominated industry. I started as entry-level teller drive-through part-time at MTSU while I was going to study full-time there. And when I had the opportunity to lead an office, oftentimes when people would come in to look for the manager, they would go directly to the male in the office. So I always had fun introducing myself. But too, not only the clients coming in, but internally as well. Working your way up the ladder in a predominantly male industry, it is hard. It's challenging. You've got to make sure to balance, are you not too emotional, too aggressive? So those have been the biggest barriers in my career.
Definitely in the world of technology, definitely a male-dominated field, not too many women at all. It's that forever moving bar. If you do these set of things, we'll promote you, and then next week they change. If you do this little bit of things, we'll promote you. We're like feeling like a flip-flop, so to speak. That bar is ever changing, ever moving every day is probably the biggest obstacle that I faced.
I would just add, many times in interviews, as I've worked my way through my career in hospitality, I would be asked, can you manage this job with everything else you have going on in your life?
Yeah.
And I wonder too, are the men interviewing for this job being asked the same question?
Why do you guys look at me when you say it? Look out there. It's a man out there. Look.
And I felt like I had to work harder to prove that it was possible.
Okay.
Well, what about, like if you're a strong woman leader and you speak your mind, you're tended to be considered a not, what is, you know what I want to say. But if it's a man and he comes in and he says and speaks his mind, he's a strong leader. Like there's this bias that if you're a woman and you're strong and you say what you mean, you got an attitude problem, or you know.
And if you're a man, you have passion.
That's
Yeah.
right.
They'll be looking at you again.
And Malika, since you're looking at me, the next question is for you. It's already been stated that Malika is a co-owner. She made it very clear that she is the co-owner, not the under. She's the co-owner of Franklin Fruit Teas. Just so happened I went to your facility yesterday.
Oh.
Your tea is good. She sells 6-packs
Yeah.
of tea,
Uh-huh.
6 for $16.
Yeah, he got it.
So visit her, 348 East Castle Street.
Oh, come through.
Okay.
Commercial.
You volunteer a lot of hours not only in Murfreesboro, but also in the Davidson County area. As a matter of fact, she is also the 2022 Rutherford Athena Award nominee for this year.
Well, my other nominees in here too.
We talked about, you talked about barriers, but how do you get through those barriers? There are definitely barriers out there. How do you break through those barriers?
I can speak for myself. And
Yes, you can.
I can speak for myself. My husband and I talk about this a lot, and he call it, you got to have that dog in you. That's what he says. I call it tenacity. And I think it's when you really when you want something bad enough, you look within and there's this fire that just can't be put out. And so that's what I draw and pull on when I'm going through challenges. I'd say I'm kicking in the door. I'm coming at it full strength. And I often wonder, is that a trait that, that I'm just blessed with? But I know everyone has it, because I see it in all my counterparts. I see it in so many women where when they want something bad enough, and I think that's one of the powers of being a woman, you want something bad enough, we're going to get it done by any means necessary. I mean, we've come a long way in history, and I revel in it. I just revel in it to see where we started and where we're at now, and we're still going. So I believe that it just really becomes that passion that you have inside, the tenacity to not give up, and that fire that you just keep burning, and you just kick in the dough.
Okay.
And for me, I think going through the barriers, what was most important to help align my passion was my moral compass. You have to have a strong moral compass and values to assure that you stay on the right path, because the barriers are so dark sometimes that you get distracted and you listen to other people. But you have to reconnect to that inner compass, that moral compass, to ensure that you break through and break through that the darkness and kick in the door.
Kick in the door.
I definitely agree. I like to call on my village, my tribe. You got to have that strong support system to help push you through when you feel like you just can't make it or take it anymore. They are there to say, come on, put your big girl panties on. Let's go through this.
And don't give up at no. I was told no several times in my career when I knew that I was the right choice. Handling no with grace is important too. That's not to say I didn't drive across the parking lot in my car and beat the dashboard or walk a loop around the hotel in the freezing cold. I did that, but I wanted to be seen with grace, because young women are watching all of us every day to see how we handle obstacles. And being conscious of that is important, but don't give up. Try again. No isn't forever.
No, it's really just a game. It's up to you to figure out how to get to yes.
Amen.
Can you all think of a example when you had to stand up for a woman who was misjudged?
I have a couple.
Okay.
I'll do one personally. My partner who's in the audience, she's here, and she has alopecia. And oftentimes, I'm sure you know the award ceremony, that a slap across the face happened because, there's misjudgments there, and people make fun of other people for their condition. And so I didn't do a Will Smith. I often find those moments to educate and inform. And I think that's what's so important, is to shift the dialogue into education as opposed to an attack. Another time is professionally. I had an associate who has a demeanor in which she is not smiling all the time. Doesn't mean she's not happy. And so male leadership, brought me aside and said, you have this person and she just comes to meetings and she just has this furrowed brow. And I'm like, well, that's just how her face is. She's happy. She's doing great. She's on the right path. I'm sorry she's not smiling for you. Because oftentimes we have to smile, right?
Yeah.
And make ourselves appealing and attractive. And sometimes, your face just doesn't smile.
Anyone else?
I had two great candidates for a role, a celebrity services, like the person that greets all the top CEOs or celebrities coming in to speak to groups or whatever. I had two great candidates who had studied overseas. I mean, they were outstanding. And we were conducting a panel interview, and one of my counterparts in a different division said, well, I'll tell you what, that one wore heels to the interview today. That one that wore heels was a housekeeping manager who walked 4 miles a day in her shoes. And the person that said it was someone I truly liked. And it was a learning moment for him, because I didn't wait. But I wasn't mean. I just said there's no place in our interviews for those comments. This is about the strength of the people interviewing. Either would be a good choice, and either would. Shoes have nothing to do with it. And if you'd like to interview with me in the future, this should be the last time you make that statement. He thanked me. He thanked me. Honestly, we're great friends. I had a reference call on him just a few years ago for a job where he was interviewing somewhere else, and I hope he always remembers. You know, we need to teach. It didn't mean the culture of the company was wrong because one person made a statement, and maybe he was joking. I didn't care. It was a learning moment.
Cheryl, if you had given me that look, I would have listened too. This is a time where we can take a break and say this. When you see something,
Say something.
say something. You're just as wrong by not saying anything if you see something that's going on. Let's throw a change in here. Question from the audience. One question. She is on ready. It's like Family Feud. I hadn't even finished the question. Yes. Stand up. Thank you.
Several of you have mentioned empathy and emotion. Have you run into an instance where a coworker has confused empathy with emotion? Because I know sometimes I've had the experience of being really emotional, and it's like, oh, stop. Have you had that experience?
Yes. I often. Well, I certainly hope that I don't understand taking emotion out of things. I think emotion is important. It shows you care. It's how you deliver that, I think, is where it gets hairy, right? So oftentimes I have to check myself. I have internal peers that I can call and say, okay, I'm feeling some type of way about this, and I need to make sure am I in the right lane with this emotion, and kind of clarify and make sure I articulate it the way everyone wants to hear it.
Okay. Jonica, did you have a?
I just didn't handle it well.
You want to tell us about that?
Which instance, probably? No, probably when I'm really passionate about something, it comes out and resembles a little bit of anger. But I am not angry. I have a deep love for things that I want to say, want people to hear, because a lot of times they don't hear us. Some men
Thank you.
tend to repeat our great ideas as if they're on right there in front of us. So having to sit there and listen to hear that, and when you try to say something, you're being rude. So just working through those type things.
Okay. One more question from the audience. Yes?
Are there any particular challenges as women of color? You know, women do have challenges, but are they amplified because they're a woman of color, and are they extraordinary challenges you face by being a woman of color?
I do think they're amplified because not only do you have the stereotypes of being a woman, you also have, for me, I have the stereotype of being a black woman. And so if I am my authentic self, which I like to be most all the time, people may perceive, maybe I roll my neck a little bit. That's what my culture does that. I may speak a little louder, more vocal, then of course with certain biases. I'll never forget, prior to Franklin Fruit Tea, we owned a different business, which was healthcare consulting. And it was a pretty good business. We were making profit, and I needed to change my accountant. And so I started calling around. I wanted to be in Murfreesboro, didn't want to have to drive far. And I actually talked to a local CPA. And I was telling him about the business, and he wanted to meet with me, and we were going to have a face-to-face interview. When I got to his place of business, and he came around the corner, he literally stopped dead in his tracks and stared at me. And I was like, well, I must be fine, or what's going on? It was so uncomfortable. It was the longest pause where I said either he's seeing a ghost or he's like, this woman is gorgeous. I don't know what it was. And I'm left, of course, I'm curious now. I'm like, what's going on here? Really, I personally feel, and I could be wrong, we'll leave that to, we just throw that out there. I think he was surprised that I was a black woman. And I think when he heard the numbers and he heard what type of business it was, and I really think he was just shocked. And my soul knew it after a moment of, I was like, hello, that type of thing happens sometimes. And I'm really kind of used to it. My skin's real tough now. It's sad it has to be, but it is. So I expect people to underestimate me all the time. Even in Franklin's Fruit Tea, these type of scenarios happen where I say, well, we're doing this type of business, or we're putting on this event. And they're like, oh, you're a vendor? And I'm like, no, we're organizing the whole event. Oh, because you're no, and I have to say it several times. And I wonder if I were a male or if I were an African-American woman, would you ask me over and over? I've already answered your question. So that's my experience. So yes, it's amplified.
I would say definitely, in particular, I know in the last 3 or 4 years when I made those high dollar purchases, having to go to the bank and they're looking at your pay stubs and your W-2s and things, and they're like, and what do you do for Deloitte again? I'm like, I work in cybersecurity. And how long have you been there? It's like they don't, and that's a stigma that's on African Americans, that we don't have the income, we don't have the means to buy these nice and beautiful things. And when you go and you're that person that has been afforded opportunity to do so, they look at you kind of differently, like you must be doing something illegal or whatever to have this much money in the bank or have this job or whatever, or you might be an admin at that company and so forth.
Okay.
Thank you. That was going to kill it.
Is there anyone in the audience that we do have some other HR directors and others that are in the audience? Anyone else would like to respond to that question? Yes.
Yes, so, T had asked about, and I don't want to make this all about, race or anything like that, but T had asked about maternity. Had asked about being a woman, and, this is about, diversity and inclusion. And so I'd like to, welcome in space for this. I work in legal, I work in HR, and, I have been asked to, kind of whitewash myself and change my hair, change my appearance, to make myself more welcoming, to corporate America. All kind of changes, to be made on how I speak, tone down my voice when I'm passionate. And so, have you ever, to be those who go to, like the African American community of our panelists, and not too much time on this, but have you ever been asked, to like change your appearance, as far as like your hair? Because, I'm just now in my career after 15 years in legal, able to, wear my hair, in the styles that, belong to our culture. And, I'm certified 3 times, I'm one of the only African Americans, who, in the state of Tennessee, that has the, certifications that I've had. But yet, I'm so unable to, how I'm supposed to present myself. So, which is really sad. But, yeah, have you been told or asked, maybe not so told, but asked, how, can you please, change your tone when you're in this meeting? Like, you have a seat at the table, but you're still asked to do certain things. Even if you didn't necessarily cooperate, have you ever been asked to do that?
Yes. Definitely when I first started with the firm, with the clothes things, I used to be real dusty, right? So I used to think, I'm sorry, definitely when I started with the firm, I was definitely asked about my clothes. Used to be real busty, right? So I used to think these ladies had safety pins just for me in their drawers. So when I would come in, they'd be like, come here, They'd be like tugging and pinning and whatnot and fixing my clothes on me. I need you to find something else to wear. You need to wear a different blouse next time you come in here, or you look cute, but you might want to put something else on over that to cover up your arms and things like that. Over the years, that has changed. I know when I went natural, I'm actually natural, even though I have braids. I started with braids. I was working at our training facility in Dallas, and I wasn't sure because hospitality is a little bit different. They want that straight, tame, pulled back hair, and I wasn't sure how to transition from a relaxer to a natural other than starting off with braids. I didn't know if they would accept me or say something to me, because I didn't see a lot of people of color wearing natural styles other than braids and or a relaxer or sew-in wig.
I'd like to add, I'm fortunate, I don't recall right now anyone ever asking me to change my appearance. However, I did put those stipulations on myself. I did, and I believe it was because, especially going through school, subliminally, that's not even, subliminally, blah, 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 I was taught that this is professional, this is not. And so if you want to get somewhere, you need to convert. So I know that was a struggle, not because someone just verbally said it. I just really believe I was trained and taught. And literally, probably over the last decade, I've worked to retrain and reprogram myself. And I know it's hard, and I said sad because it's like a sickness that we have in the Black community as women, where we are taught that we're not beautiful, we don't look professional. This is how my hair grows out my head. Like, what do you want me to do? Yeah, like, I interviewed for a role, and I also went natural. I had this talk at Chamber. Like, I went natural, and I was so nervous. I had a little short fro. I was so nervous. I said, they're not going to see me. They're going to see I'm Black, right? And it was really scary. Luckily, everything was fine, because not everybody is like that. Thank God we're making so many strides. Thank God for the Crown Act that is going to make sure that hair discrimination will be illegal. Because, like I said, this is the way my hair grows. I have to wear certain styles, I have to use certain products. Sometimes I may want to cover my hair, depending on if it's humid outside. And I still should be valued for my professional work experience, and this should have nothing to do with what I decide to wear or how I decide to wear my hair.
Ladies, going through a lot of the things that you've talked about even before this question, how have you built confidence and or resilience over the course of your career? What do you do to keep going and not give up? What are some things that you've done to build your confidence and resilience? Come on, Courtney.
I still go back to the moral compass. So I always have that safe place, right? To know this is who I am authentic self, and I surround myself with a community that supports that. And so when I have those moments, like before this panel, where I'm not confident and I'm like, why am I here? And I have a dear colleague call me and tell me why I'm here. And so those things, you have to have a family that supports you both professionally, socially, and your family, of course. But I think that's what helps me remain a consistent, confident level.
Awesome.
Yep, my family and my faith. I know for me, I do vision boarding, so I have affirmations all around my laptop and my computer on the cubicle walls, my favorite Bible verse, my favorite quotes. I look at those. I spend a lot of time making sure that I'm the best example that I can for others, so they can see me and themselves. They might go ahead and persevere and try to.
Okay.
I
Cheryl?
think surrounding yourself with women like are in this room is so helpful as we go through this thing called life. And not just making friends who are just like you, right? Open your eyes. I read so much because I know I still have a lot to learn. I don't ever want to hurt someone because of my ignorance. I work hard to earn trust. You can break it so easy. I work hard to earn trust. And love isn't a corporate word, but love is a word I can use in my job now. I have a lot of faith, and I give a lot of love away. Life is too short not to share love. I couldn't say that in corporate America. I love saying it now to the families that we serve and we work with and we help. Children inspire me. My beautiful daughter Claire, who came tonight, inspires me for the
Where are
work
you, Claire?
that she does.
Raise your hand, Claire.
Look for inspiration. Look for opportunities to do something new, to meet a different person, to open your eyes up to something that you can be passionate about that you never dreamed about before. This is different for me. But boy, is it rewarding.
And I'd just like to add, celebrate your wins. I have to stop sometimes and just celebrate. I don't care how small they are. I will literally sometimes go on my Facebook timeline and just go back and see where you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Because I think as we're going through our day-to-days, we're so busy, like, accomplish, move on, and so to see how confident you really should be, you got to look at where you came from, how far you've progressed, and that should propel you forward.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Okay. We've all heard the word work-life.
Balance.
Work-life. Ladies, there's a lot that, as I was looking at your bios and reviewing them, there's a lot of things that you do. Not only do you have either your businesses or your organizations or companies that you work for, you also are involved in many, many organizations. And then there's the family, and then there's the other hobbies and passions that you're involved in as well. How do you balance those?
Well, I'm grateful that I work for a company that values balance. I would say ask my boss or ask my partner if I do that well, and they would probably give me a run for my money. But I think it's super important, and I did it this week. You know, you're running so fast with your career, your personal life, your philanthropic passions, and you realize you start to make mistakes if you don't balance it out. And I know that. I start to feel it, and I make sure I take time to decompress, reevaluate things, check that moral compass, and start over. So it's super important to make sure that you have self-awareness to when you need to reevaluate that calendar.
Get your loved ones involved with what you're doing. Like, work them. That works for me. So, yeah, I know, and my mom. Like, seriously, I think the more you involve your tribe with your passion and get them going and submerged in it, then it's great. Because, like, I may be selling fruit tea, but now I got my kids next to me, too. My husband's with me. So now it's like we're doing it together. So it's work, but sometimes it just feels like we're family hanging out. So I like getting them involved. And even my friends, I drag them along as well.
I definitely agree with that. I always call my sister my best admin. She's sitting right there. She's the best keeper of my calendar. She books my vacations. I give her the money. She makes sure I'm where I'm definitely need to be, or if there's going to be a conflict with where I'm supposed to be. She's the best admin ever. Free labor is good.
We'll have to help you out.
I would only add that you're blessed when your job is aligned with your passion and your values, because then it doesn't seem out of whack, even when sometimes we allow it to get out of whack. You know, I know it's movers and shakers in here. We say yes a lot. Sometimes you do have to say no and give yourself a break. But, did you hear that? It was like an amen.
You'll take up a collection pretty soon in here.
But yeah, just make sure if you have a job and you wake up and you dread going, it might not be the right one. And you can change. I was afraid I couldn't change for a long time. And there's freedom in trying something new and succeeding and, and being aligned.
Okay. Let's go back to the audience. Any questions from the, yes, back in the back there.
I wanted to ask if any of you have had opportunities to teach the boys in your life, and then how to share, how to share the emotional labor load of, the mom's always the one that knows who the pediatrician is and knows where all the prescriptions are, and they need refilled, and who needs a birthday present, who needs a party, and who needs this, and who needs that. I find that the males in my family, I needed to give them opportunities to do those typical female things because they would constantly look to me like, oh, I need to pick a gift for so-and-so. And you give some thought to that, and to kind of empower them to share that labor.
I feel like I have the opportunity. I don't have children, but I have the opportunity to lead a team, and I have to happen to have men on that team, and I have to make them aware that it is not the female's responsibility to play in the party or to remember
Some
the
more
birthdays.
amens on that one, huh?
So I love to delegate those to explore that part of themselves, because they do have the creativity to do it. They just don't have the want to.
Okay.
I can add about gender roles when I think of my family. So my husband likes to cook, and I can use a power tool. So what we are working on always, but what we do is we try to figure out where our skill sets are. Not as male or female, just what am I good at, what are you good at? And we play on each other's strengths. People all the time tell me, they talk up to me about the tea. People assume I make tea. I don't know how to make the tea. I don't. But I can run a business. I can work on the trailer. I can do a lot of things. It's so funny, and same thing where people come in our shop and they'll go, have your husband take a look at this and tighten that bolt or whatever. And I'm like, and I have to say, honey, I'm the one that tightens the bolt. He has on the apron, I got on the tool belt. So.
Yes, one more question.
So in Rutherford Cable, we're all about moving women forward, right? That's part of our motto. And I think a lot of us, including me, have encountered women in our lives that did not want to move us forward and in fact wanted to hold us down. So what advice do you have for either how do we deal with those women who want to hold us back, or how can we be supportive of other women to be sure we're moving them forward?
Well, since we can't hit them with my truck. I'm sorry. In reference to pulling other women up, I make it my point to seek out women when I'm filling roles, or if I know that others in the department have roles. I even go as far as to prep them for the interview, rewrite resumes. Recently, a young lady that was in school at Mississippi State, so each time I would add a person to our Zoom call, because I told her, eventually you're gonna have to interview in front of a panel. So the first time she went out, she didn't do all right. Okay, we're gonna try this one more time. You're gonna have to get it right. She knocked it out of the park. When I saw the people she interviewed last week, they were so grateful that I helped her and so forth. So just trying to help them get ready, because sometimes people need that little bit of help and that little push to help bring them up along.
That's great.
I would add, I'm going through just re-sharpening my saw on servant leadership. And so when I think about a woman who wants to hold other women back, I'm at the part in this journey where it talks about sometimes we look at people as problems and we want to move past them instead of stopping to engage with them. I think those are opportunities to really be a servant leader, to figure out what's going on with that woman who doesn't value other women. And I think we have the best opportunity to lead by example in those cases. My mom always said, kill them with kindness, you know. Sometimes you do have to maybe engage those women to try to get to the root of what they're dealing with. I'm working too. I'm working on this, y'all. Like, I don't want to perceive people as just problems. I think in our community, whether it's work or in our, you know, where we live or church or family, we can't just keep dismissing people. I think we have to, like, you know, call them out on their stuff. And let's see if we can figure out what's really going on. And then, you know, let our leadership shadow hopefully motivate them. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be up to them, but I think we owe it to our community to try.
Courtney,
Yes.
how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Very good. Courtney is the Senior Vice President of Pinnacle Financial Partners. She leads their Middle Tennessee Diversity and Inclusion Council. Courtney, because of her extensive work in the community, she's been recognized with United Way's 2020 Young Leader of the Year Award and two-time Athena Young Professional nominee. Not only was she considered a servant leader, but Courtney was also have the heart for developing other people. Courtney, talk to us about how important it is to have a mentor to grow as a leader. And how, also, if you can, talk about how do you go about getting that mentor?
Yeah. Well, having a mentor for me, and I think just in general, is absolutely vital to your success individually and professionally. I have a three-legged stool approach. You have a mentor within your family circle, you have a mentor professionally, and you will have a mentor in your friend circle. I have three of those consistently, and if you have one that's off balance, the stool's gonna break, right? So it's super important to have those three mentors in your life. And how you get that, I think, number one is to always be your authentic self and organically grow relationships around you. And you have to come in a vulnerable place, right? You gotta have trust to be able to be your most vulnerable self with your mentor, because that's how they're gonna be able to lift you. Because if you're vulnerable, you're exposing your weaknesses, and if you don't expose that, they can't lift you. So I think it's super vital, and it's important too for me to be able to do that for others. It's a passion of mine, to be able to mentor those who want to grow their career or grow in their passions and philanthropic efforts, because I've been bestowed blessings within this community, and I want to do the same for them.
Very good. Anyone else?
I think mentorship is very important. I think, I don't think I heard the word mentorship, though, until I was in maybe a senior in college, or, you know, at least an entry-level manager. I think we need to introduce the concept much younger. Kind of like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or a mentor at the Boys and Girls Club. But honestly, haven't your mentors made you feel special? I hope so. I love a mentor relationship. I love being mentored because my mentor challenges me. I need to be challenged sometimes. We can be complacent. And I love to have a mentee relationship. Developing other people or helping them along their path. Sometimes you just need somebody to say, you're on the right track. Otherwise, we just kind of wander, and it can help you align a direction. I think mentors are very important, and we should start much younger in our organizations. And with our children, I should have given you a mentor a long time ago, but I've learned a lot, you know, right? We learn as we grow. It's very important.
Okay.
I definitely agree. mentors are very, very important. I prefer for them not to be my friend. I need people that are not afraid to call me out. And I think I heard a phrase last week, don't call them out, call them in. They can really get deep down with you and tell you, you know, you're not going the right way, or you're going the right way, but if you do this better, well, now that you know what you should not have done, can you tell what you really probably would have done? If the situation had turned itself around a little bit, I just prefer them to not be a friend, be somebody that doesn't have a stake in the game. Those are the ones that you probably get the best advice from.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that when it comes to mentor. If your mentor is telling you everything you want to hear and not challenging you, that's not a good mentor. I also say that if you're in an organization that there's mostly male at the top of the organization, make sure you have someone that you can trust, even if that's a female, but also have a male as well that's at the top of the organization, because that individual can also, and I know this is going a little bit into sponsorship, but that person also can really help you and can kind of give you some direction on where to go. So don't always just look at people that are at your same level. As a matter of fact, there are people that are below you that can give you some assistance when it comes to mentoring. Does anybody care to share a good or bad mentor story? I should call you. I saw somebody drop their head. I should call you. No, I was just kidding. Yes, come on.
So I became a director of operations at my current company, which I'd never done before. I'd done other administration, but not that job. And so the first thing I did was join the women's group, for my industry. And they talk a lot about the mentor program. And I thought, oh, that's how I'm going to learn. Like, I need some help, right? And eventually, liking them, I received a mentor. We had one meeting. 2 years later, I've never heard from her again. So, anybody knows who I am? I need one. That was really frustrating for me because I was trying to be intentional about improving myself in what was going to be industry. And felt a little let down by a women's finance that touted their mentor program. So I feel like I slipped through the cracks.
Okay. Any more? Yes.
Well, I have total opposite of what she had. My mentor is actually right here. She's been my mentor since 1993. It started as when I was a college student. And I know you said not to have your friend as your mentor, but of course, our mentorship grew into a friendship. However, she's not afraid to call me out. She's been my mentor not only through college, but she's been my mentor in life challenges as well. So it can go both ways with friendship. And yeah. So she's still here today, as you can see.
Very good. Ladies, what advice would you give to the next generation of female leaders? There's another. Come on, Malika.
This is a different whole ocean than I think what we had to navigate, what my mother had to navigate. In a sense, it's better. I think that people are more accepting of people. I think people aren't always trying to put people in one cookie cutter situation. So in that aspect, I'm like, sky's the limit. But what I would say to the next generation is, own your truth. Literally, it doesn't matter what other people want you to do what you want to do. A lot of people think they know what's best for you, and I know a lot of people mean well, but it's your life. You really have to live it the way you want to. And I think that with the way our world is changing, I think these are the people who are really going to rise to the top, the people who are okay with being different, the people who are okay with starting change, because I think that's really, really what we are going to need in these coming days, is people who are okay leading change. And so I would just give them that encouragement that it's okay to be different, it's okay to follow your own path, and just be the change you want to see.
Awesome.
Stay true to your authentic self. I think that's so important. I think that the challenges ahead for the next generation of young women, I think there's, like you said, a lot has changed, but a lot more needs to be changed. And the only way to do that is to stay true to yourself and not be afraid to speak up. When you say something, see something, say something, make sure you do that. So those are the advice I would give.
Very good.
I would say be prepared to meet people where they are. I heard a great phrase last week, the obstacle is the path. Definitely tell them to make sure you have your village ready to stand behind you, to help push you along the way. And even if you have to hit them with your truck. No, I'm playing. And definitely own it. Just be ready to own it.
Okay.
Believe in yourself. Bobby and I share a friend whose family mantra is keep going. Sometimes when we run into obstacles, it's real easy to stop and maybe redirect and say that wasn't meant for me. But if you have your eye on it, it's meant for you. If you feel passion for it, it's meant for you. Keep going. And recognize, take people with you, right? Take people with you. Have good friends. Working in philanthropy, I see, and in a mission to serve children, but we also have to raise money to do that. And when I see some of the most successful people I see in our community are those that give back. They give back and they're blessed in return. I credit much of their success to their heart for helping others. And a lot of that has to do with my faith also. But I do, if you're serving people along the way, you're taking people with you, you believe in yourself, and you don't take no for an answer, keep going. You will get somewhere in life.
Okay. Jonica Cowan, how are you?
I'm awesome.
Very good. For 20 years, Jonica has been recognized as a leader at Deloitte. She's currently serves on the ITS Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, Technology Leadership Hall of Fame inductee. Jonica has a saying that she sticks by, and it's from James Baldwin. And I want you to listen to what it says. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. I'm going to do like they do in church. Let me say that one more time. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Jonica, what has influenced your thinking around diversity and inclusion and motivated you to get involved in being an advocate for change?
I definitely want to be the change that I want to see. I'm a firm believer that if the next person can't see themselves doing what I'm doing, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay? Also, for me, if I know change is edible. Like, I work in technology, things change every day. I'm sorry. Which piece did you want me to repeat? I want to be the change. I live by that. If I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, then that person here, that person there can't see me and them. When I feel like I'm going to give up, climbing up the leadership ladder, and I keep looking around, there's nobody that looks like me, or there's only one or two, And there's several coming up the ranks. They're like, well, we look up to you. I'm like, why? But you know, they see something in themselves in me, so that keeps me going and pushing and trying. When I'm out there recruiting at these targeted events, trying to bring in that diverse pipeline to come into our technology organization, I am looking for people that have that sparkle in their eye, that rare talent. Now, it's not always the person with the highest GPA. It's not always the person that has that technology degree. We have several people that have psychology degrees and English degrees. They are doing well in the world of technology. It's the people that have the desire to learn and desire to try that I look for.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, and then, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No,
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Sorry for cutting you off.
And then just with the things that have happened during the pandemic over the last 3 or 4 years, myself and others within the company have banded together and got our organization as a whole to make that big change. Just on last week, we had a summit for the African American leaders within the company. So within our training facility down in Dallas, we had 550 African American senior leaders and partners gathered in one space. Our CEO was there, Joe Yu. He wanted to be immersed into our culture to understand some of the things that we're facing and seeing. They also did something similar the week before with the Latino groups within the company. I think they're doing something this week with the Asian and Indian companies too. So they're really putting their money where their mouth is. They have made a commitment to invest more money. I think it's like $10 million a year in those goods and services or people services or software services that are Black-owned or Latino-owned and operated. I think probably about 2 weeks ago, we were part of the big HBCU initiative that's going on. So we actually gave out like $10,000 scholarships. So for those of you who don't understand, in a Latino or African American community, that scholarship means a lot because a lot of those students are first generation college students and their parents don't have the means to send them to school and so forth. So definitely, because there are strengths in numbers. Like I said, we all banded together. We're like, hey, what are you going to do now that's different than what you've done before? Yeah, we had the affinity groups before, and that's all they were. They were groups. There was no putting their money where their mouth is until now.
I know, I just like to say representation matters. One thing that we've kind of done, my husband and I, we founded a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit called Black Culture Connected. And honestly, it really started from just wanting to be the change we wanted to see in Murfreesboro. My experience, y'all, this is my experience. When I would go to events, I didn't see a lot of different people having a good time together. It would be mostly all of one ethnicity. And that bothered me. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Like it's a melting pot of a lot of people just doing it together, being a community together, and I didn't see it here. So one thing that we did was we started the Black Murfreesboro Market, one to support Black-owned businesses here. It was really scary, to be honest. I didn't know how the community would respond to that. And I'm not gonna lie, we get some negative feedback all the time. It's racist, and I'm like, okay, if we talked about what racism is, that's a whole nother thing, but we just wanted to support and we want to connect with the community. But on top of that, even we love that result. We love to see everybody coming out to support these Black-owned businesses, but the Friday night market in the borough is like heaven to me. To go out in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and see people of every ethnicity supporting each other's businesses, eating each other's food, listening to different types of music, it is game-changing. It's like, this is the community I want to live in. So when I say representation matters, I mean for everybody. We need to see everybody being appreciated and supported right here in our community. So that's very important to me when I think of diversity and inclusion.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Oh, no, it's just clapping.
She'll say no. Do you feel like, and Jonica brought this up earlier, do you feel like that the bar is always moving when considering the hiring or promotion of diverse candidates? And if so, how have you experienced that, and what have you done to overcome that?
I'm going through that right now. I've seen men at my level go straight through. I didn't know at the time But on last year, they looked at the wage gap for us, and I didn't realize I was that severely behind my male peers in the organization. Definitely with the promotion thing, again, I'm fighting that battle now. They fight me tooth and nail. I've done all these things I do. I literally do this much more than my peers and have a lot more authority to make decisions on behalf of the organization, and they're still pushing back. They're fighting it. Well, you might need to wait, or this might not be the right time. If you just wait a minute and let Joe go through first, and then we'll bring you through next, if next ever comes.
Okay.
I've experienced that same thing. I'm grateful to where I am now because I do work for a company that embraces diversity and inclusion. But I remember in my previous life, you know, they would be like, I would want to get to that next level, and it would be like, well, you need to volunteer with 3 organizations first, and you need to have this on your resume, and you need to finish the degree. And when that day came, it wasn't good enough. It was like, well, you actually need about 3 more years in this office. And grow this big of a portfolio, then you have to grow an even bigger portfolio until you can get to that level. So it was constantly changing. It was never, oh, here's the bar, you've chinned it, congratulations. So I'm grateful to be where I'm at today, though.
Awesome. Questions from the audience? You guys have done awesome. No question. Oh, there's one. No, go ahead.
I want to ask about how you make time to be intentional with your future plans. Because I feel like we all do so many things all the time that a lot of times our paths are shaped just out of reaction to what's going on instead of having time to stop and think, that's where I'm going to be and that's how I get there, instead of just finding yourself where you find yourself because you kind of bounce through in response to other things. So how do you make time to figure out what it is you want and how you're going to get there?
It may sound very cliche, but at the beginning of every year, I do sit down and I write out goals that I can revisit. And then that doesn't mean I'm not going to change them or circumstances are going to prevent me from achieving, but it does kind of establish the path for where I want to spend my time and what I hope to achieve. And it's not just a professional goal, it's what do I want to do in my personal life that's new or different or better or give up, or my professional life, etc. But I do try to take time to do that. I watched friends do that for years, and I watched that work for them. Before I gave in to the game, I watched them do it and decided, all right, let's give this a shot, and it really has been beneficial.
I don't necessarily write down goals every year, but I do take some time to reflect. I do a page with things that I'm doing now professionally, to go to another page, things people say I'm great at, places I might want to live as if I'm going to move, some skills that I've acquired or I like to acquire, and I look at all that information, and I may go out to a job board or two and see if any of that translates into a new role for me or something different for me. And then, of course, I ask myself, okay, based on what you're doing now, can you do this another year or two? And the answer is no, then I start planning out my moves, planning out my strategy, who I'm going to talk to, where I might want to land, have 2 or 3 places in mind just in case the first 2 don't work, and just try to navigate that out from there.
Have a plan, and also make sure you invest energy into it, because what you put in, you reap what you sow, right? So you got to make sure you have the time for what that plan is, be it professionally or personally. You just invest that energy and make sure you're intentional with scheduling that. So when you're looking at your plan, have I done X, Y, and Z with my energy to achieve said goal?
I agree with everything they said, which is funny you brought that up. I literally, yesterday, beginning of the year, my husband and I, we did a vision board, real cheesy, corny, like a poster board. We cut out pictures of magazines and like wrote with markers on it. And it was in my car, but I've been thinking about it, but I brought it back out. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to him. And what was really cool about it is that I was actually able to check some of the things off the board. And one of those things too included rest and relaxation. I planned a trip to Essence Festival in July. I was like, check, we did it. I'm excited about that. But you just have to literally take the time. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a piece of paper, you doodle, you know, get something to drink maybe, wine, I don't know. And just literally sit down and think about what it is you really want. And it is weird, like when you put that out there, how it does start to manifest and your energy does kind of gravitate towards it, because I knew those things were there and I talk about it a lot, but it was really cool to go back to that board and like, I think it was like 3 things on there that I was like, check, check, check. We're just looking for a celebrity endorsement, so if anybody knows a celebrity that wants to endorse a fruit tea, that's on the list.
Very good. All of you are involved at some form in Diversity and Inclusion Council. I've listed some for a couple of you. Either you have been or you are now. But how has the face of diversity changed in your organization over the past 10 years or so?
Yeah, I can go. I know when I started with Deloitte back in 2000, diversity was real different. As far as the technology department, I think it may have been 250 of us. We all fit on one side of the building. They may have been literally a handful of women, and even a smaller handful of people of color, of any ethnicity of color. Majority of those individuals that were of color were in the call center. So they were taking the calls about benefits and technology issues and routing them up to where they needed to go, but they just were not in my space. Over the years, I've seen them add a lot more women. We've added definitely more Latinos and Hispanics to our organization. We definitely have now a lot more women in leadership, though we still only have 1 or 2 up there at the top. But I see the company making bigger strides and making that diversity face change. They're being more intentional, as I stated earlier. They're really trying to immerse themselves in the different cultures and the different, to get a better understanding of some of the obstacles that we all face in that.
For me, I haven't had the blessing of being at Pinnacle for a decade, but in the 3 years that I've served with Pinnacle, I've seen a major shift. You know, we pride ourselves in our culture. We're the best place to work, best bank in the Southeast. But with the tragic murder of George Floyd, our CEO spoke up and said we weren't doing enough. And he admitted it. He raised his hand. He had the courage to start the conversation and put energy into changing how we are inclusive within the firm, and charged each region to have a D&I council in which we have the blessing of having money to be able to invest not only within our associates for education and diversity, equity, and inclusion, but our communities as well. So it's just shifted tremendously during the pandemic, as well as in the philanthropic area. You know, I serve as co-chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council for the United Way with Dr. Bonner, who's here in the audience. And it started with, of course, the same catalyst. You know, the murder of George Floyd put a magnifying glass on things. And Dr. Bonner and I had to do something. If we have a philanthropic cause in our community and the leadership on the board doesn't look like the community we serve, we've got to do something different. And so I feel like we've moved mountains, Dr. Bonner, and we're going to continue that with the United Way as well. We are.
Very good.
Training is really important with our staff. We've worked hard on board diversity. It's so important. How can we represent and serve and not have a diverse board? And we've made big improvements, but not enough. We, as a staff, as a team, we work together on a pledge to our youth, and that's posted on our website, that we want, well, it's long. I would encourage you to read it. But we made a pledge, the board, the staff, for how we will treat each other and how we want to raise the children whom we influence, to accept others and to see the potential in everyone and to welcome everyone. And we have a lot of work to do. I'm so honored to be included with these women and to learn from them, to learn from each of you. I'm so honored to be a part of this. We just want to make a greater difference in our community. We're here tonight because we love our community and we want to make a change and we want to be change agents. And so we've got to keep learning. I depend a lot on my parents and my staff to have open conversations about how we can be better.
Very good. Very good. Question from the audience? No. Means you guys have done well. Yes? Yes?
Actually, Jonica brought it up, because she mentioned in her current, maybe, I don't know if you recently just went for a promotion or going for a promotion.
Going through it now.
But you noticed that there was a wage
Well,
discrepancy.
actually, they told me it was a wage discrepancy. I was clueless.
Well, okay, they were transparent. But my question would be, and let me be very frank and transparent here, I don't know what y'all's leadership, where y'all sit at the leadership circle tables, but if you are on that leadership, or when you get there, if you're not, because you're gonna be, how would you approach that subject? What would you like to see happen with the discrepancy in wages between the men and women? Any of it, African American, female, all of it. How would you approach that subject? What would you like to see? How would you say it to make it more transparent?
Say it to make it more transparent. Yeah, I think at some point, and not just with my job, with any other companies, they're gonna have to probably go to a standard that this is gonna be it. This is gonna be the pay, regardless of sex, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity or anything, this is gonna be the pay. I think they try to use geographic location. Well, you're living in Nashville, it's a Class C city, and Joe's living in Dallas, which is a Class B city, so there's some changes there. I'm like, it shouldn't matter if Joe lives on the moon, was exactly what I said, because Joe was a lead. And I'm saying, imagine there's no way this lead, who is 2 levels below me, should be making the same amount of money that I'm making.
I was so disappointed when I got on the executive committee at Opryland and I saw what the wages were across the board. I saw the disparity for the first time. I'd been feeling the disparity, and I'm not here to say, I love the company that I work for, but boy, was it a smack in the face. And I'll tell you, every time I filled a position when someone left, I bumped it up as high as I could, every single time. And many times I had to fight for it. But every time I bumped it up because it was not enough for the job they performed. And it was not enough that, that exceptions were made based on social clubs. You know, I'm not here to bash men, because my mentor, my greatest mentor, was one of my bosses along the way. He helped me so much. He advocated for me, but he also accepted that. Ugh. Those are hard conversations to have. But when you can make a difference and you have an opportunity to make a change, you take advantage of it, and I bumped it up every time I could.
I think transparency is really important, and we lack a lot of that. And I think it's going to be those corporations who have the D&I initiatives to have to do a self-evaluation internally. Transparency, number one. There's apps called Glassdoor. There's TikToks called Transparent Street. I encourage everyone to watch those. AAUW has resources on how to negotiate salaries because you got to ask for it. And I know I'll never forget when I got my slap in the face. That's when you need your tribe, right? And I asked for it, and then you get the excuse of, well, we can only bump you up this percentage because then that, all the different mathematical equations that they can come up with until you have to make a change. Yeah. Sometimes you have to make a change outside of the organization to get compensated what you rightfully deserve.
Good. Thank you, ladies. At this time, we have a quick video, okay? I will end with this. It's something I've always believed in. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If someone's dialect, their pigmentation, their political, their religious preference or sexual preference cause you to treat them differently, you don't care. Thank you. Let's give these ladies a big hand.
Thanks so much to Jeffrey, our moderator, to Malikia, to Courtney, to Jonica, to Cheryl, for a great night. Just really a good time of fellowship and learning. So grateful to Bobby and the entire Diversity and Inclusion Committee in Rutherford Cable. And Rutherford Cable is very excited to be part of this and to help sponsor, but we're very grateful to our sponsor for the evening, Pinnacle Financial Partners. And we're just very excited. So glad that you're here. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Amelia. Yeah, we're very thankful for Rutherford Cable and to allowing us and this opportunity for Pinnacle to sponsor this event. I was taking notes, so I'm sure some folks beside me were like, get off your phone. I was taking notes. I want to leave you with a couple things. Listen, empathy, balance, be creative, stay true to your authentic self, set the expectation, handle with grace, educate and inform, do not attack. Stay in tune to your moral compass, look for inspiration, celebrate your wins, be a servant leader, have a mentor, keep going, and representation always matters. And guess what? Always have your tribe. I think I have some new members in mind tonight. So I want to leave you with this again. Julie Lewis with Pinnacle Financial Partners, I thank you for your time tonight. I think we all have gained something that we can take away and hopefully take both personally and professionally in our lives. I want to leave you with this, and a lot of you have heard me say this several times. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Thank you again.